The air elemental. And this is definitely one character that I do use for Tales of Valhalla. And well, I mean, let's just read on it first before we start passing judgments, because that's what I was just about to do. Okay, so the air elemental, Jandar, is a Valkyrie general. It's an elemental, of course, common hero, a construct, a relentless, medium 4 height, with 1 life, 5 spaces as a move, range of 1, attack of 3, defense of 3. 30 points. I don't know if anybody heard that because I covered my mouth, so I want to make sure my microphone picked that up. And special abilities, Swirling Vortex. When an opponent's small or medium figure moves onto a space within 2 clear sight spaces of an air elemental you control, that figure must end its move there. Figures can never move through any figure affected by Swirling Vortex. And you have Air Mastery. Figures that have the flying or stealth flying special power subtract 1 from their defense dice when attacked by an air elemental. And then there's stealth flying. When counting spaces for an air elemental's movement, ignore elevations. An air elemental may fly over water without stopping, pass over figures without becoming engaged, and fly over obstacles such as ruins. If an air elemental is engaged when it starts to fly, it will not take any leaving engagement attacks. So this is one of the elementals that, of course, like Kuruk the Elementalist can control. Let me see. Look at just real quick. Kuruk is the can combine there. Anything else do you think that would be important for when it comes to gameplay for this elemental, based on its stats?
You mean Swirling Vortex being a pain in the butt?
Yeah, Swirling Vortex is so fun. What do you mean?
Because we don't have the elemental, but we have the custom. I forgot what it is. It has that same ability where it's like you can't attack it from, or you can't move into its its range. You can't move into that
Well, it stops you basically.
Yeah, and it's like, bro, what am I supposed to do? And then I was reading down here, and it's talking about how flying characters can essentially just forget that. And then Chewbacca, Sergeant Drake's Grapple Arm, Sun Shadow's Phase Step, Marrow Drudges, Shaolin Monks, and of course Earth Elementals. And I'm sure there's a lot more there that can essentially stop that. So, that's good to know.
Yeah.
The
very rule heavy.
Yeah, the rules and clarifications really, really help, because there's a lot of stuff like that within Heroscape that you don't really get an answer for.
You have to search it out, and
there's a lot. I mean,
that's why
I miss the FAQs.
That's why the book of Heroscape, on Heroscapers is so, because you can go below this and read discussions and other the synergies and questions that people have on the air elemental here. Yeah, for sure. So, and I know, like, when it comes to like using Kuruk in here, let me just go to synergies. We'll discuss lore in a second. Let's just go to synergies for a second. So synergies, we have Death Knights of Valkyrie, Kusamet the Dark Lord, Kuruk the Elementalist as well. Kuruk the Elementalist would be probably the biggest bet when it comes to any elemental, really. But I think if you had a choice between like an army of air elementals with Kuruk and an army of other elementals with Kuruk, would you choose the air, or would you choose something different?
I would only draft air if it, like, I think, in my opinion, air would do good in very specific map scenarios where you see tight corners that you need to hold. So they because like you want to stop people in spaces where they're inconvenienced, right? And this gives you the opportunity to do that if you place it right. As a common hero, I mean, I think, at least in my opinion, you don't want to draft just one common hero. You're definitely if you're gonna draft air elemental, you're gonna want to draft a couple of them,
for sure,
at least 2 or 3. And then Kurok just makes it easy to move them because you can move up 3 elementals per turn using Kurok. But they ground control, space control. They can hit fly. So any flying units that are under like low defense would be devastated by this group. So like it's like if you have if you're fighting an army with like mostly winged, which I mean I'm trying to think of like any of the flying units that are like really good in groups. I don't know if there is really any.
Let me ask a question, like because I remember when I was eliminated by Dysel with at ScapeCon last year with a dragon and some green scale warriors. Remind me the name of the dragon. I know it's one of the
Zelrig.
Yeah, Zelrig. There you go.
Oh yeah, common.
Would the air elemental be able to put a stop to like Zelrig a little bit? In that aspect?
Mainly because Zelrig has a flying, so the Zelrig would roll 1 defense less if you manage to get the air elemental within attacking position, because it doesn't have ranged, so you have to be able like somehow lock the opponent in a place and then be able to move the air elementals forward in a way that's like
I don't think it's stopping.
If you're lucky.
I don't think it's stopping it.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a counter
it doesn't stop.
would be.
You're rolling 1 defense.
Yeah.
You're not. That's not. I mean, look. I played against that Mike Oreo. I fought against him a couple weeks ago against Zelrig, and I had a bunch of commons. I had the dividers, and I'm just rolling 1 the entire time. And sure, I was able to sell divide. Which did not happen as often as I thought it would be, but
that always happens that way with cell divide.
I think no matter what, if you're taking, I mean, Zelrig is an exact counter to Squadscape, right? And even though the elementals aren't a full squad army, you do play them like a squad in a sense, but there is a difficult place in the meta right now for this type of army. I don't have an experience with it. I think Jason, you're the only one with experience. You played it at ScapeCon, right? This was the army that we played in multiplayer madness, right?
You mean Jeremy?
Not me. I was at
Jason?
ScapeCon, so
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, my bad. Right, Jeremy?
Yeah, I did use. I was playing with all the separate ones, the multiple ones, and I don't. Yeah, air was really difficult to use. I found more use in like fire and earth mainly, especially just playing them all together. And I was kind of being silly because I hadn't played Heroscape in like years up to that point, so I was just like, "Hey, these look cool," and I don't recommend. Don't use my.
No, they're a super awesome combo.
Yeah, it's a good combo, but definitely I think they shine better in terms of like multiples because they are the commons.
Oh, for sure. And I think that goes for any elemental. As well, you wouldn't want to send a single elemental.
Firestorm army.
Yeah,
I won Speedscape with Firestorm. That was fun.
And I think the finals at ScapeCon too for like the main event. There was a guy. I think it was. I don't remember his. I know his name was Mike too. I think he had brought Kurok and a bunch of elementals.
It's just a good army. It's really solid.
Yeah,
you can see the. What I like to say, because they had various development teams throughout the history of Heroscape, and this was Colby Dodge. This was Truth's work, right? Truth, Grunge Bob, and those members who were members of the Heroscape community from very early, and then molded into the development industry, and were working with Wizards of the Coast directly to make these characters. You can kind of see the experience of them playing the game embedded in these cards, because some of these powers are crazy good. Like if you know how to play them right, you can see some devastating combos that took it took years of games to get to that point, right? Like if you didn't actually have players making these characters, I don't think they would have these kind of powers. but because they had played so many games up to this point, they were like, okay, now we know what we need, and this is where these characters come from. So it's like I do enjoy the Wave 11 through 13's characters specifically because of, you can see the playtesting prowess. Like, you can tell they've been playing that game a lot, and then you get these crazy combos. You're like, oh wow, okay. So elementals are really, really good touch things.
Yeah, and I think the point value too, as long as you know how to use them.
Oh yeah,
it's got a wonderful point value to where, I mean, you can make a headache by just having basically a squad's worth of them with you.
They didn't have common heroes as significant as like these groups that came out during these last 3 waves, because I think the only common heroes at the time prior to this was the Swag Rider and the Dumatef Guard, and that was it. Everything else was like uniques or common squads. So this like completely changed everything about the game. Like, it just gave a complete new dynamic, new play mode and everything. And
for sure,
it was just really cool.
For sure. And attack 3, defense 3, that's not a bad shake, really. I mean, there's one life for sure. But 3, like I said, 3 or 4 tends to be the good sweet spot. So especially if you add, like, for defense, like elevation or attack elevation. So 3 or 4, give or take where you are in the battlefield. That's a pretty good sweet spot for a miniature as well. And movement 5 spaces.
Oh
yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah,
just kind of thinking broadly about these guys, like, because they're points wise, they're effectively an individual squad figure. 30 points for those stats is basically one member of a squad. So if you had 3 of them, 90 points, you're looking at a squad. But it seemed like if you had 3 common heroes, unless you're running like Kurok with his elemental ability, you're paying for a squad, but you're getting not the order efficiency of a squad, because you can only issue when you issue an order, you're only moving 1 of the 3, versus if it's a normal squad, you move all 3 and get 3 movements, 3 attacks. So I guess I'm confused as to why you would do that strategy unless you're running Kurok, or is that the idea? Use him.
Yeah, you'd use Kurok with him.
Kurok made it.
Kurok is the main guy. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend using like any elemental as a squad in any of the army without Kurok. I mean, I'm sure it's possible. Maybe, I don't know. Someone in chat or comments like comment on that. If
people played them. I feel like people played them because they came out in March, right? And then Kurok didn't come out until like June, July-ish of the same year. So there was like 3 months of games where the elementals were on their own. And I'd imagine that was probably just a bunch of frustrating moments of like, what do I even do with these? Like, because you have to each use an separate order marker and everything.
Is there anything C3V that? No, not really. So there's really no other like elementalist type controller.
No, there is.
Is there for C3V?
Did they update?
Yeah, but not for them though. It's for other characters.
Okay.
Other elementals.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm saying. For them.
Oh yeah, for them. Sorry, yeah. Because there is an elementalist, but he does it for like large and huge elemental characters, or I should say, no, not structures.
For other elemental characters, that is C3V, right? Basically.
No, there's I can't think of the term. It starts with an S, not structure. Can't think of the term they use.
Definitely not in my head. I don't know.
Constructs.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I mean.
The species.
I mean, he is a construct too. So.
Right.
Or the other elemental has defined construct. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I guess it's one of those things to where I think it's a miniature that it looks cool. And it's definitely interesting, but I mean, I think most people probably pass it by for something, unless you have a Kurok the Elementalist, and then have fun just experimenting, with it, and if you have a few more, but
it's one of the, I think at least for me, because I say this as a personal element, right? Get it, element. But in terms of a lot of players, a lot of Heroscape players, members of the community were rightfully upset when this whole transition happened from what is known as classic Heroscape to D&D Heroscape, or where we
Right.
were just having
Right.
D&D miniatures. But the elementals were one of those few special additions that were given to the set that allowed it to have its own unique taste. And what I mean is that, like, these models that are on the bases aren't the original models from the game. They actually recast them in a different plastic and made them more akin to their elemental nature. So, like, we get the clear air elementals, whereas the original model was opaque. Like, it wasn't see-through. We got see-through elementals as a result of the collaboration, and also was a reason why everyone kept buying this for D&D, because
aesthetically they look really nice. They really look
the clear
really
plastic.
Nice.
The clear plastic is a unique element of the Heroscape versions of these miniatures, and I think that I always thought that was really cool. That despite the various complications that resulted from the transfer of from Milton Bradley to Wizard of the Coast, it was the guy that was in charge of Wizard of the Coast did actually have, at least the person that was in charge of the liaison between the two groups, right? He did have a desire to give Heroscape its own flair, its own flavor, and it wasn't just D&D. It was D&D elements in Heroscape, and he did that by casting it in a new plastic and bringing out those unreleased miniatures, which was really, really cool. So I think his name is Paul Barclay was the guy that was doing that. Appreciate you. You helped make these decisions. You're awesome. Thank you for your help and making them cool.
For sure. Yeah. No. Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to animate them for ToV, because they look like really nice, and they're it's so fun to write a story around them, and use them, because I realized what I could use them for, and with the the magic of filmmaking, bring that together. So yeah, for sure. Undamped Pick says in the chat here, I have 3 of each small elementals and still have a sealed set that I picked up 4 or 5 years ago for $30. Yeah.
The dream.
Oh yeah, that's a steal. It says, yeah, love those minis. Yeah, like I said, aesthetically they're very, and the air elemental itself, I mean, is just a very, very nice. Oh wait a second. Okay, yeah, go ahead. There. Let's see, there Jeremy has.
He's
got one right there. Just saying hello.
Camera screen. There you go.
But anyway, okay. So lore, which is probably gonna be a short conversation, but let's wrap things up with lore a little bit. Let's see here. I got let's see here. Usually it's written in blue here on the Books of Heroscape. I'm just gonna read what's in blue a second. This is what it says. It says, character bio from Truth's front page description. The air elemental is a Jandar summoned common hero that truly halts any forward movement up on the battlefield. While flying figures can fly over its swirling vortex, they will feel the wrath of its air mastery power. That's just describing the stats.
Yeah, and hate me if you want. I'll take the beef. I'll take the heat from the community.
Just give it a tiny.
That's not a character bio, y'all. I don't know why you called it that. Sorry.
I wasn't mocking at all.
That was a. They literally just copy pasted Truth's description.
Right. Yeah, that's
from
what they say.
Post, which is cool. Like, so I do think it's cool that we were getting the previews, right? Mm-hmm. And I never understood precisely why it was difficult for them to not write bios for these characters. Granted, we were getting into Dungeons & Dragons, which had been around far longer than Valhalla had been, right? We're talking about, Dungeons & Dragons is like 30 plus years now, right? So I get it, right? They're like, oh my gosh, so much to read. But that was the whole concept of D&D, was to make your own thing out of it, right? And I was like, you could have borrowed the stuff, and you could have made something cool with Heroscape, and you could have posted that too, and no, they didn't. And I was like sad. I've been sad ever since. But I will do a quick rundown. I promise. I'm not gonna take the rest of the podcast to do this. I promise it'll be within a few minutes. So, right. I promise. I worked very hard to compose this into a tiny form of information, accessible information. But so we know that the air elemental, as do the other elementals, come from the planet Toril, right? And Toril is the name of the planet that comprises the Forgotten Realms campaign setting, right? So to those that are unfamiliar with that, it is the entire universe that is usually played when you play Dungeons and Dragons. Forgotten Realms is the default, but they've done other realms which you have seen in Heroscape, right? Because they have Eberron as well, right? That's a different campaign setting. So Toril is the campaign setting of the Forgotten Realms. Okay. Forgotten Realms has been around since 1967. It's an old place, right? It's been around for a while. They've changed the world a lot. It's pretty cool. This place is connected to you got the planet, right? And then it's connected to things called planes, right? If you're with me here still. These planes are definitions of reality, right? And one of these definitions of reality, one of these planes, is known as the elemental chaos. Oh my God, Brian, you're
I'm into this. I'm very into this. Yeah.
I guess. The elemental chaos, right, is where these beings originate, right? They come out of the matter of the elemental chaos, and then they enter into the prime material plane, which it comprises the world of Toril. Okay.
I don't know why I decided to go Vanna, but I'm going Vanna White tonight. Okay, so
That's
I'm
funny.
just roll with it. Just roll with it. Okay.
I love the It's like interpretive dance, you know, like it's abstract. It's all abstract. Now from that point, right, this is where it kind of becomes reliant on the DM to provide details, because then you as the DM would construct the reason why the elemental would be here in Toril, what it was doing. And this is why I was like, yeah, they could have totally wrote something, because then they could say it came from the elemental chaos, was available in Toril, Jandar summoned it to Valhalla, and then, you know, it further explains what they were talking about in Age of Annihilation, where the Valkyrie had this, like, all this cosmic power where they could literally poke at various universes at this point, and they were pulling things from different universes into this world, and just, yeah, you're fighting for me now. It's like, what? That's crazy. So they're basically tools. You know, they're the way they describe them is like fragments of creation given sapience, and they literally exist to return the world to chaos. They have really no other purpose. They're not unless they're stronger. They tend to just be foot soldiers in the armies of the beings known as the Primordials, which that was the name of the package that they came out of. So I was like, man, they could have done that Primordial stuff. You know, once again, personal issue. But yeah, foot soldiers of the Primordials, they exist to return the world to chaos. Most of the time, if they're not controlled by somebody, they're causing issues, destroying things, returning everything to the primal state of existence. And most of the time, you just set them off on a group of adventurers, or if they're being summoned by the cults that use them. They're varied uses, right?
Right.
But that's my condensed version. I promise that is actually very, very. I'm proud of myself, because I could have kept going. There's a lot more to that, but I cut it up into very tiny consumable bits.
Seems to me like Mystic Nature's own vacuum cleaner.
Yes,
These guys.
Yeah. And think of it like, you know how, what's the term? Oh my gosh, I was thinking something physics. You know, everything they're saying everything returns to entropy, right? It's like everything is always like giving out energy and stuff like that. They exist to bring everything back to the original state that the universe was at, which was everything.
I'm just thinking stuff in
So-
my own head what I might do for future seasons of ToV now. Yeah,
Yeah, no, the elemental lore is
Flashback
really
when they
fun.
got sucked up.
Elemental lore is really fun.
or what their purpose
So-
is. What the purpose should be.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, they could.
or,
Yeah, that's why I was like,
are they trying to live outside of the purpose that was given to them to something for their own individual selves? Maybe, I don't know.
right.
It's
Oh,
an interesting thing
there's-
to explore. So
hmm
yeah, for sure.
And a fun fact. One fun fact. This isn't lore related so much as it just like fun little timing thing, right? As I was doing research for this little panel entry, because I was like, all right, how do I condense this into bite-sized chunks? I found out that Heroscape actually got the original models of the elementals before they even made monster entries for the original elementals in 4th edition D&D. And I was like, wait, what? Like, how? Because the 4th edition D&D came out in 2008, right? And then we were getting these characters in 2010. But they didn't release the elemental entries until the summer of that year. So Heroscape got these first before they even put them in OG D&D. And I'm like, whoa. So that was super cool. Fun fact of the day. Little timeline twisties there. But I thought that was pretty cool because they release a lot of books. D&D has a lot of books, and they have 5 editions. Yeah, so I was going through a lot today. I had a lot to read.
For sure. Well, hey, and thank you so much for doing that research that we
I got you.
the rest of us don't do. I'm not criticizing this. I'm just you're the guy when it comes to that. So we do appreciate you.
I was in a rabbit hole. I was in a rabbit hole for about 2 hours. I will let you know. I had at least 20 tabs open doing this thing. So
That's awesome. That is awesome. No, I appreciate it so much.
I believe it.
Yeah,
It's good
it's fun.
studying.
I enjoy it, but there's a lot of information out there about this thing, and I was like, and they didn't use any of it.
well, Jeremy, we have 3 other elementals to review sometime in the future, so you'll have opportunity, of course, to talk about them again. So, and any other thoughts? Any other thoughts before we close this segment about the air elemental?
The air elemental will blow you away.
Facts. Yes.
I got one possibly long, hopefully not too long of an answer question here.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
what happened that would allow Jandar to summon a bunch of these things where they all died at once, kind of a, or he just got to pick them off
Or is
the
that some
Dungeons and
area?
Dragons battlefield as they died or something?
Yeah, that's
Until they pulled
the
a bunch
thing.
of them in the world.
If it's either death or like they were involved in some sort of conflict that was going to go poorly for them, I assume. Because for the most part, every character that we read about was summoned at the point of death, or at the point of a distinct conflict. Some characters were like rescued right before those conflicts happened, things like that. But
Rescue.
yeah, rescued in quotations. We don't know. It's a lot of time shenanigans going on that that was the whole fun with Age of Annihilation. They were going to get into that, show you why you don't do that. But yeah, either something they either got lost, right? Because they did that with the Romans. The Romans got lost and then showed up in Valhalla, or you have they're at like a point of near death or a point of near destruction, and then Jandar just happens to see them or has seen them a couple times, and he's like, you know what? Those look cool. Come and help me instead, and just start plucking them out of the with his wellspring powers. So it could have gone various ways. They could have done a really cool concept. Like I was thinking in my brain when I was writing out the notes and stuff, I was thinking like maybe they're messing around with the well springs and the primordials are like, we could use this, and send the elementals through, and they're like, we're gonna tell the elementals to help the Valkyrie in their war as a way to secretly end up taking control later on, and be like, because that's the thing, primordials just want to turn everything back to chaos, and I'd imagine wellsprings are a really easy tool to do that with. So they could probably be like, hey, send my soldiers through the wellsprings with everything else, and just
Could be the Wellspring's
additional
goal anyway.
Right.
We don't
Right.
know what the
We
end game for
no idea.
the Wellsprings are. So, yeah.
So it's like that was what D&D was always an idea of, like, yeah, if you got a cool idea, write it out and use these themes with it. And then I was like, man, they could have done so much cool stuff with Heroscape D&D.
Again, write stuff. Write novels.
Right.
Novels. All right. So anyway.
So much info.
All right. So if there's nothing else to be said, then I will close this segment. And fun discussion over the elementals. And I mean, there's 3 other other elementals we'll definitely talk about in future podcasts. So we'll probably be back on this discussion.
You're saying we're leaving the audience on a cliffhanger again, Ryan. Oh my god.
Joe,
Look, it's
Joe,
incentive.
Have
Hey,
you
Joe,
seen
Joe,
my show?
It's incentive.
Have you seen my
Incentive
show?
to come back next 2 weeks.
Joe, have you seen my
So
show?
for alphabetical order, there'll be a lot of
Cliffhanger
one
limited
elemental.
series.
Anyway, okay, so this has been looking at the air elemental from the squads and heroes of Heroscape. Until next time.